Welcome back to the Early Weigh-In Podcast. Saturday night is going down in New York City at Madison Square Garden. We've got UFC 309, the return of John Jones and Stipe Miocic, both GOATs in their own right, but we know the best to ever do it is, and that's John Jones, man. So happy to have him back. Love to see him at heavyweight. You know, a lot of questions really didn't get answered in the Cyril Gane fight, so see how he looks this one, see how Stipe looks. And, dude, co-main event, car crash from the start, Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. We were just talking about it, you know, pay-per-view in terms of strength. Probably could have been better in our opinion, but I think we're in for some finishes on Saturday night. So happy to break down the card with you as always. Let you recap last week, which, you know, deeper in the hole we go, man. Can't seem to get anything to fall our way. I'll let you recap both our cards before we jump into the pay-per-view this Saturday.
Yeah, we're certainly both still stuck in this slump. You at least did get a win on, which is better than I did. So going over your card, you had Bolaños versus Ramios under 2.5 rounds. I don't know, really good fight. Just didn't happen. The under 2.5 rounds in Zaleski dos Santos versus Scroggin. Reminded me of Weston Wilson, you know, just wanted to fold whenever he got in there. That was a really good bet at only minus 154. You hit that for a unit. And then Mullins wins by submission. You're on the right side. Probably should have just taken the inside the distance. We talked about that. But the submission plus 900 was an insane number. You only ended up minus 1.04 units on the night. So not that bad, but damn it, we'd like to turn things around right here. Looking over at my card, 0-3. Bet Tricoli. I thought he looked great in weigh-ins. Looked like a monster, and I shouldn't let size get to me, but it did. I guess Tresean Gore isn't, you know, the worst in the division, and he proved it on Saturday. So good win by Tresean Gore with the Gilly. Tricoli needs to get cut. I had Zaleski dos Santos wins by submission. In that finishing sequence, didn't even think about it. Literally did not even cross his mind. I was upset, but it is what it is. And then Robertson wins inside the distance. I think I was like in and out on that fight. Pretty sure
top control.
Yeah, of course.
Elbow to the
just like
hole.
Michelle Waterson fight.
Yeah.
I've better inside the distance the last 2 fights of hers and have not hit. So, you know, glutton for punishment there. I ended up the night minus, I just took it off my screen, but I'm pretty sure I was minus 3 units, maybe 3 and something units. Not that great of a night. Hopefully we can turn it around. We start in the women's flyweight division where we see Veronica Hardy taking on Eduardo Mora. Veronica Hardy riding a 3-fight win streak. I'm sorry?
No, nothing. You're good.
No. Veronica Hardy riding a 3-fight win streak. A questionable one at that. She's had a couple of split decisions, a couple of close fights. She's never been somebody who really pulls away with a fight. She kind of lacks the intensity I'd like, the finishing ability as a woman. And I do think that that's going to bite her in the ass. Right now, it seems like the line has corrected a little bit too much. And in most of these fights that she's had, she is the you know, like in the Jamie Lynn Horth fight and the Juliana Miller fight, she's dogs in both of those. And now we're seeing her as a favorite against legitimate competition in Eduardo Mora. And I do think that line's kind of getting away. Eduarda is a big girl for the division, which ultimately means quite a bit. She's 5'6". I do think that Veronica Hardy doesn't have the best body for the division. She's a little small. She's not that physically strong. And I am a little bit worried for her against Eduardo Mora, at least optics wise. I think we're probably going to get a close fight, but I would much prefer to be on the dog side of this with Eduardo Mora than taking a stab at Veronica Hardy at favorite odds.
Yeah, man, we have super similar thoughts. I've kind of flip-flopped back and forth all week on who I feel like is going to take it, but you know, ultimately, I always come out to the value I thought being on Mora. You know, moving up in weight class here for her, I think is a good move after missing weight the last 2 times. And for her style as somebody who likes to push the pace and get the takedowns, you know, I think she was killing herself making 115. And so, you know, maybe not having to cut the extra 10 pounds, able to put her game plan together a little bit longer. And even somebody like Denise Gomes, I don't know, Denise Gomes might be a favorite in a fight over Veronica Hardy, despite the weight difference. Like Denise Gomes has much more power to offer than Veronica Hardy does, who's more of a footwork, pitter patter, use a little volume. I feel like I've definitely seen improvements out of Hardy's game, but I'm with you, man. Dog in her last couple fights, now a favorite over a girl who I'm really ready to see in weigh-ins because I'm not convinced she's 5'6". I think she's going to be a little bit bigger than Veronica Hardy, man. And if so, weight looks good. I kind of feel like Eduardo Moraes aside as well. Definitely a plus money, man. Moving on, up to 170, Oban Elliott taking Basel Hafez. I'm going to bet Hafez by Saturday. There's no doubt about it. I see 220s and things out there. I'm hoping Oban Elliott gets a little bit more love. I'd love the best number I could get on Basel, but man, just looking at Oban Elliott, the dude doesn't have much finishing potential whatsoever. He's been finished in the past. And I just feel like Basel Hafez has plenty of advantages in this fight to at least make it close. I feel like he's the more durable of the two. He has the power of the two. Wrestling I might give to Oban Elliott. He's the better wrestler of the two, can get back to his feet. But I feel like jiu-jitsu-wise, Basel Hafez is a much better jiu-jitsu of the two. Just worried about him a little bit later in the fight because I feel like round 3, Oban's a dog, man, and I feel like maybe round 3 goes to Oban Elliott at a significant clip here. But I also think that Basel could just be up 2 rounds or even, knock him dead with a knockout. So plus 220 right now is he's shown me he can go the distance with somebody like Jack Della, despite the, Styles making fights and the terms of that fight. Somebody that can fight close with a high-level welterweight like that at plus 220 or even better is an easy click for me.
Yeah, I got Oban Elliott in the fantasy league, and I told you I'd be more comfortable if he was sitting at a minus 180 because it does seem like that line's been juiced to apple pie shitter level. Mm-hmm. And I would agree with the 2 things that you said. Basel Hafez has an advantage in is the power and what was it? It was the power and the jiu-jitsu. But I'm not really sure that Hafez has the ability to stop a takedown. So banking on somebody to be on their back and outwork somebody on the ground is just not a look I want. I feel like Oban Elliott can kind of be the one who determines where the fight takes place. If he does want to push the pace wrestling wise, I do think he's going to be able to get Basel down. And if not, he's really made some improvements in his striking. And I feel like Oban, even though he might not have the most power, he could probably keep Basel guessing by keeping a jab in his face, not really letting him find his rhythm and just avoiding that big shot. I do think that it's a pretty good chance that this goes to decision with Oban winning 2 out of the 3 rounds. A clean sweep wouldn't surprise me either, but I do think he's the rightful favorite. It just stinks that he's, not decimating people, Yeah. I feel like there is a pretty good chance that this is a closer fight than the line is saying. But I am still going to ride with Oban Elliott here. Moving up, staying in the same weight class, 2 of maybe the worst fighters on the roster in 170 pounds. Mickey Gall taking on Ramiz Brahimaj. You brought up when we were talking earlier. This is for 500 fight career for Mickey Gall. If he loses this fight, he's inching near to the Nate Diaz level of record. And I do think that he's probably going to get cut, whoever loses this one. Both of them are kind of sub or bust fighters their entire career. We're seeing the fight ends by submission at plus 200. I know usually that is something that kind of cancels out, but both of these guys, I don't see it really any other way. And if it becomes a slop fest into a decision, so be it. I do think that 2-1 is good enough for 2 guys who between them both combined only have 1 other win by submission. So give me the 2-1 fight ends by submission. Maybe Brahimaj gets it in round 1, or maybe he quits in round 2 or 3 and Mickey's able to find that rear naked choke. So give me fight ends by submission plus 200. I think I'm going Gall here. Hate it. Would never bet him at the number, but I'm going Gall here.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I kind of feel like there's a super solid chance this fight ends by submission on either side, and I'm just a bit more confident on the Gall side, I think, than you. Ramiz Brahimaj has dealt with a horrible injury in the past and didn't come back to watch the Thimba fight. Nothing off of his back when he does get taken down. Doesn't offer much resistance. Has no volume on the feet, and he's historically been a sub round one, or he's going to lose the fight. And if Mickey stays safe, man, I trust his cardio more. I think he's a better boxer. I think he's got really good jiu-jitsu, maybe not on the level of Brahimaj, but length, he's lanky. I think he could get on top as Brahimaj fades and finish this fight by sub. So, plus 200 for both primary paths to victories for both of these guys. I think it's a solid play. I'm on the Mickey Gall side. It's in the minus 140s right now. I'm tempted, man. It's just hard, like you said, to lay chalk on a guy who could potentially be a 500 fighter come Saturday night. So all points heard there, man. Moving up to heavyweight, Marcin Tybura taking on Johanna Diniz. Diniz supposed to fight in Edmonton. Derek Lewis a couple weeks back. So, we broke him down, talked about him. Pretty high-level kickboxer for the heavyweight division. Moves pretty well, good kicks. I think he's pretty fast as well. But from what I've seen, this guy can be taken down, and he doesn't have the ability to get back to his feet. And Marcin, outside of Tom Aspinall, hadn't been knocked out in like the past 4 or 5 years. He's found a way to kind of change his game around. Doesn't just go in there swinging bombs. He looks to grapple. He looks to put you against the fence and use what I consider to be a really solid gas tank for the heavyweight division. And a guy who's got 30-plus fights, I see this much like the Tai Tuivasa fight, man. It might be early where he's in some danger, but the moment this fight gets to the mat, Marcin's not just going to hold him there like Austin Lane did. Marcin knows what he's doing on the mat. I think he passes to Mount and finishes him ground and pound, or turns him over and gets a choke, man. I like Marcin inside the distance, considering like a 2-3 look on him.
Yeah, I don't hate that. I think Diniz, like you said, really good striker, but he does have like some fraudulent tendencies. Kind of reminds me of Robelis de Spain, but Diniz just doesn't move well enough. He has good size, but I do feel like he is going to get back against the cage at some point, and that's kind of where Marcin really starts to take over. If this is just a boring fight where he can negate the distance and just keep him pressed up against the fence, Tybura is not above that. Actually, I've loved backing him for that reason alone. And I do feel like the line, it's kind of gotten out of hand at this point, but I am curious at like Tybura decision only, something like that. I think I'd be more comfortable with that because there is a pretty good chance that Diniz can catch him on the chin. That's kind of my biggest worry for Tybura. So maybe in a little bit, I'll look that up and see what kind of line we're looking at.
Nice. I don't hate it.
Tybura is the pick, though, for me. Let's see. Going up, a fight that I didn't really touch on too much looking into this card, Roberto Romero taking on David Onama. Romero taking this fight on short notice, like a week's notice, against a pretty good competitor in David Onama. He looks like a tough Mexican. I think if he can withstand that early pressure, we could see like a Nate Landwehr type of, like near, I don't know. I think if he can withstand the David Onama pressure early, he could break him down, but that's a long shot, man. I think David Onama is the rightful favorite. He's really athletic. With this level of competition, I think he should roll pretty easily. So give me David Onama.
Yeah, I'm on the Onama side as well. Hadn't got a chance to look into Roberto Romero. Don't know anything about him, but on looks, I feel like speed, athleticism, power, experience. There's most everything that favors David Onama. It's just like you said, could it get interesting late if David doesn't get him out of there? Probably gets him out of there though. He's got some huge power. Moving on.
Something else. I didn't touch on Onama. There's a bunch of times where while he's fighting, it looks like, and we've said this before, like his controller disconnects. And I don't like the way that he reacts to a lot of things. So if this Romero does push a certain pace, it could be exciting. So I'm not sure I would trust Onama at a minus 1,000 strictly because of the tendencies that we've seen in his past fights.
Is that what the odds are?
Yeah, he's minus 1,000 right now, and it's I don't like him minus 1,000 against anybody.
No, I didn't. I expected like 400.
Yeah.
Wow. Going back up to 55, Jim Miller versus Damon Jackson. This is one where I've also flip-flopped back and forth all week, man. Earlier in the week, I I like Jim Miller at plus 145. I thought he was a solid play, but the more I look into it, man, I just think he's liable to get grappled here as this fight progresses on. He's definitely the better striker of the two, but dude has not beaten high level competition in quite some time. Donald Cerrone might be the best win he's got in like the last 5 or 6 years. It's not Clay Guida, maybe. It's not very impressive. And when I look down through his record, he hasn't won a decision in a damn decade or something. There's not a lot of substance behind Jim Miller if he doesn't finish early. Maybe he's able to lock up a guillotine or something. But I do think the grappling of Damon Jackson is just going to be a little bit too much, man. He's not the most powerful guy, but when he does get a hold of you, he's able to take the back and hold on. And I feel like that could be enough in this case. Kind of favor Damon Jackson's cardio down the stretch, and maybe this move up to 155 will help him out a bit. Both of them are coming off absolute ass whoopings. So if both of them take a step down in their performance, I wouldn't be shocked either. So I think I'm going to flop to the Damon Jackson side, Damon Jackson by decision. But maybe even, I haven't checked the line, but a fight ends by sub in this. I think there's a lot of grappling involved. Both guys are pretty sneaky. Damon Jackson by decision, I think, is how most likely going to play out.
Yeah, I don't hate that. You can get that at plus 165 too. I think that's a pretty decent look as opposed to playing Jackson. What is he, minus 180?
Yeah.
There's a lot of scenarios where I feel like Jackson does get top time and just kind of hold Jim Miller on the ground. He is pretty well versed on the ground. And if there's, if he can implement some wrestling in here and get Jim Miller on his back, I think he can ride out a few of these rounds. It's just, if Jim Miller makes him work, maybe we see a little something. But I do feel like, and we'll talk about this in the next fight as well, that this is a very winnable fight for Jim Miller in his age, and the UFC's purposefully doing that by putting him on this pay-per-view. So that's kind of turning me off of betting Damon Jackson straight up, because I just don't think that that's what the narrative is wanting. The UFC's narrative is wanting. Damon Jackson is the pick by decision. I like both those. Moving up the card to the middleweight division, Chris Weidman taking Saunders. Man, both these guys not very good. This is another scenario where I feel like they're giving Chris Weidman in his own backyard a very winnable fight here. Eric Anders is somebody who consistently gets in fights that are tough to score. Whether it's a lot of action or not a lot of action, he's really good at making fights close. And I just feel like in this situation where he's going against the hometown guy, who in Weidman is a better wrestler than him, way better, bar none. So that's Eric Anders' main path to victory when he is pushing a pace, is to try and wrestle his opponents. And I just think that Chris is going to be able to negate a lot of that. If this fight is close, I definitely expect Weidman to get the nod. So let's see. Yeah, minus 102 Weidman. That's probably where I lean here. I think it'll be a really, really close decision, and hopefully like a send-off fight for Weidman if he does get the nod.
Yeah, so I really thought Bruno Silva was going to send Chris Weidman to the shadow realm in their last fight. And I know Bruno Silva hasn't really looked the same lately, and there's a ton of eye pokes and stuff. But, man, watching that fight back, Chris's striking kind of impressed me in that fight. He was kind of able to avoid a lot of the danger, was able to put like a little karate stance to him. Almost looked like he'd been training with Wonder Boy. Probably has, Eric has such a significant power advantage that I just feel like if he lands at all, it could really, really change the fight. Chris seems like he doesn't have much of a chin, doesn't have much durability to him. I feel like that drastically favors Eric Anders, but I'm totally with you in that Eric's been doing a lot of grappling outside of the UFC and in his UFC fights, putting guys on the cage, trying to get them down. And I'm not sure it's going to work against Chris Weidman either. I feel like both of their gas tanks are pretty crappy and could get sloppy down the stretch. And so I've kind of decided to just keep my hands off of this fight as well. I have Eric Anders in the fantasy league, so leaning into who I think has more potential to finish the fight, I do think that's Eric Anders. So happier there, but still going to side with Eric Anders, I think, because Chris Weidman had his chance to ride off in the sunset in MSG, and MMA doesn't give you too many happy endings. And I don't, he's rolling the dice, taking a second gander at this one. So give me Eric Anders, man. Moving on up, prelim main event, Jonathan Martinez versus Marcus McGee. Jonathan Martinez has stood across from much, much better competition in the UFC than Marcus McGee. The last time Jose Aldo, guys like Syed Nurmagomedov, Jonathan Martinez is a pretty intelligent fighter. He knows how to keep fights at his kicking range and not letting guys get on the inside of their boxing range. And when he does let guys get on the inside, it typically doesn't end well for him. I don't think he's the most durable guy. We've seen guys hurt him to the body and come over top, and, Aldo and Davey Grant both be able to hurt him. And a guy like Marcus McGee, man, he looks like his hands flow when he hurts somebody, when he's in the pocket. It just looks natural. It looks comfortable to him, man. He's an absolute specimen for 135. I think he's got a significant ground advantage in this fight as well if he winds up on top. And Jonathan Martinez is also one of those guys at a Factory X in Colorado who's had a gym split up and has a whole different training situation when you look on Instagram and things. So I kind of get him being the dog. Marcus McGee is a UFC shiny new toy who's I had never heard of before the UFC and is now one of the most exciting bantamweights to watch so far. So I like Marcus McGee. I think he can ground him. I think he can close the distance and hurt Jonathan Martinez. I really do feel like Jonathan Martinez has to fight a pretty clean fight here to get it done. Not sold he can do so. So I'm on the Marcus McGee side, man.
Shoot. Yeah, I probably agree. I feel like Marcus winning the first round against Gaston Bolaños kind of told me what I needed to know. Like, he was still able to push a pace against a primary striker. That is what we see from Jonathan Martinez. And I just don't think that McGee is going to give Martinez the space to be able to start really working in his shots, landing timing and everything else. I feel like Jonathan Martinez is going to be put on the back foot from the very beginning. And that's just something that Marcus will be able to capitalize. It seems like he has a pretty decent gas tank even down the stretch, and just sheer athleticism, I think, is going to be a little overwhelming for Jonathan Martinez. And only a 15-minute fight, I think he's going to have trouble trying to win rounds on the judges' scorecards. Let's see. Going up the card, first fight on the main card, Mauricio Rufy taking on James Lontop. I feel like this is a fight where they're trying to showcase Rufy. He's coming out of the Fighting Nerds camp, and that they seem to be taking over the UFC. I would like to see Rufy outside of the first two rounds, and I guess we did get to see that in the Contender Series, but just somebody like Lontop, who I do feel like, having never been knocked out, is going to push a pace. I do think that it could get into some muddy waters late, and I just don't think that a minus 900 for somebody whose best win is Jamie Malarkey is really warranted here. I feel like this is a big step up spot for him, and if he can get through this with flying colors, then I might be a little bit more prone to bet him in a similar position later on down the line. But right now, he's still got a lot to prove. So for me, this is a either Lontop at plus 600 or pass.
He's 100% not warranted the price tag for anything that he's done, but I think Rufy's going to potentially cover it. I think I'm going to bet the under 1.5 here at plus money. But I even sent you the Rufy sub at like plus 800 or something. I think that's a sneaky look when you see a guy like Lontop who's never been submitted or never been finished on the feet, but he's been hurt plenty of times on the feet. And Rufy's got such a speed, such an athleticism, such a power advantage here. You see this fight being moved up to 165 because James Lontop's taking it on short notice, looks super chubby, coming in not the best shape. And the more I read into it, looked into it, I don't think he's in the shape to be able to take a beating and come back and, put a pace down the stretch. Maybe I'm wrong, but again, Rufy's done nothing to deserve a minus 900. But I think he does get James Lontop out of there in the first 7.5 minutes. So plus 114, plus 125, something like that it was for the under 1.5. I think I'm eyeing that, man. Moving up the card, we go down to the women's flyweight division, a fight that, I told you it's on the pay-per-view because John Jones is getting all the pay-per-view points. Karine Silva versus Viviana Araujo. The line is probably wide, but Vivi's like 38 at the end of the month. I think career trajectories are just in two different paths right now. Vivi is usually a girl who's, the stronger fighter of the two. And I actually think Karine Silva is going to be a lot stronger when these two link up and get grappling involved. And Araujo hasn't really shown me the gas tank or the get up game that I'd want to back her here. So price tag is a little bit ridiculous, but I'm on the Karine Silva side, man.
I mean, I'm on the Araujo side simply because I do think that this is going to be closer than the line suggests. Silva was a minus 160 against Lipsky last time out, and Araujo's, fought real title challengers. It just, like I said, it's one of those. It's a litmus test fight, and until Karine kind of shows me a win over somebody of Araujo's level, I'm not really wanting to back her at this price tag. Araujo's like 38 next week. So she is way past her prime. And Karine only being 30 years old, she's certainly going into her prime. This is a showcase fight, but it's still one that I expect to be a whole lot closer than the line suggests. With the experience of Viviani at a higher level, I do think that she's the pick for me at the dog price, but I do expect Silva to edge this one out. Just betting wise, I think I'd be on the Araujo side. Moving on to the featured bout of the night, Bo Nickel taking on Paul the Bear Jew Craig. I know a lot of people are taking shots on Craig's sub. I do not think that I'm going to get behind it. I like Bo Nickel for what it's worth. I do think he's a little overhyped, but he's wrestled better grapplers than Paul Craig. Maybe not in MMA, but I've seen him wrestle with better grapplers and not get caught. And I just feel like he's such a high-level wrestler. He knows how to stay calm, position over submission, and I think that he can break the will of Paul Craig relatively easy. I know we've seen some come-from-behind victories from Paul Craig, last-second one over Magomed Ankalaev, so he's never out of the fight. But at the same time, I feel like I have seen Paul Craig give up a couple times in his fights when he can't get his path to victory going. He'll easily accept bottom, and I just don't think that that's going to be an easy way for him to find that submission against somebody as high level as Bo Nickel. If you're going to go to the ground with Bo Nickel, that's not who I want. I want somebody who could keep that fight standing and kind of, bang it out. But Paul Craig has like a spinning heel kick that he likes to spam every once in a while. And that's about it on the feet. He's just not well versed enough on the feet. And he's probably going to be thinking about that takedown so much that Bo could land that overhand right. I know he likes throwing that. I do think it's going to be quick. And I think that he'll break the spirit of Paul Craig relatively early.
So I'd pick Bo Nickel, man. I actually think he has the potential. He's so much faster, man, so much more agile. I think he's leveling up tremendously on the feet each fight camp that he takes with the ground skill that he's come into the game with, and I think he's equally live just to knock Paul Craig out early in this fight on the feet. I think he's just playing with fire if you want to take the guy down, man. Nikita Krylov is a fantastic grappler for MMA and was raining ground and pound. Pretty much looked like he knocked Paul Craig out a few times with ground and pound, and his guard is just so tricky, man. It is so hard to stay off of a plus 1,000 Paul Craig bet when he's got like 10 plus submissions. I just feel like, man, he's got one of the trickiest guards. And he's live to submit any middleweight, man. After you see him submitting Krylov and Jamal Hill and Ankalaev, it's just like, this is a 6-0 guy who might prefer to take this fight, to the ground. I feel like if Bo Nickel shoots any takedowns, he needs to just try to mat return him, stick to the back, like stay out of his guard. I just feel like he's playing with fire. So I like Bo Nickel. I do think he gets it done early. Just don't be stupid, man. Moving up
so I'm looking at the odds. You got Bo Nickel TKO at like minus 120, minus 130, and his sub prop up above 200. That's where 4 out of his 6 wins are. And I think that, like I said, if he crushes that spirit of Craig, I could certainly see Craig giving up an arm triangle and just tapping.
Yeah, I mean, Brendan Allen, like put the beating on Paul Craig in the grappling and stuff and submitted him. And so while Bo Nickel doesn't have that level of jiu-jitsu, he's definitely a fantastic grappler, so not counted out. He very well could be safe, but I don't think you should play around with Paul Craig on the mat. Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler, 155, running it back a couple years later. I'm going to bet Michael Chandler. I think it's an auto bet for me here, man. I think early on in this fight, I think he has a significant advantage in the power. I think he's got the ability to top time Charles Oliveira as well. And Michael Chandler is one of the few guys that we've seen have his back taken by Charles Oliveira and not only stay safe, but be able to just completely stand up from it, And so while he's fresh, while he's early, Michael Chandler is one of the most dangerous guys in UFC. He's now had 2 years off, which, man, sure, Conor McGregor was on his mind, but like, I got to think you're pull yourself up by the bootstraps type of guy is putting his ass to work every day for a Conor McGregor fight. He looks in great shape. I think 2 years off after being in wars with Gaethje and Poirier was good for the guy. I think Chandler is absolutely live to finish this fight early. His TKO props in round 1 at plus 950 is absolutely absurd. And so I plan to release 1 unit Chandler, half unit first round TKO. I think he's live to get it done, man. Charles, he's done it all, man, And so where's the motivation at? You got killed in a title match. You just lost your number 1 contender. You're kind of looking a little soft in your media day pictures. Give me Michael Chandler on Saturday, man. Lighting New York City on fire.
I like that. The round 1 TKO is certainly the way that I'd want to play this if I was taking a little stab. I might end up tailing you on that for a quarter unit or something. Mm-hmm. What I'm looking at, that I know it sounds dumb until it happens, but these guys have fought once. Fight goes to decision at plus 640 just seems insane, man.
It's 5 rounds.
That changes things. I didn't even realize that, dude. Okay.
Yeah, Charles Oliveira, man, I bet him minus 129 live bet at the start of round 2. It's the biggest live bet that I've ever placed on an MMA fight, was seeing Michael Chandler gassed out on the scale, on the stool after round 1 and slam Charles Oliveira, and it was over in 20 seconds later.
Damn.
Yeah, 5 rounds. It ain't going to decision.
No, it sure isn't. I don't know what to play then. This is just a layoff spot for me, unless it's that plus 950. Like a quarter unit for Chandler to light it up, like you said, might be the only way that I'd want to touch this fight. So yeah, I'm on the Oliveira side. I do think that, like, we run this out 100 times, he probably wins 70, 75. But there's a lot of those times where Michael Chandler goes out there like a bat out of hell and gets the finish early.
Yeah, dude, he's got good boxing and great wrestling, but when that bell rings, like street fight mode every single time.
I love it too. That's why he's a fan favorite.
You don't miss his fights.
All right, let's see. Moving on to our main event, the return of the GOAT, John Bones Jones, Stipe Miocic. This is a weird fight for me, man. I feel like John Jones is being a little overpriced for the finish here, man. He did go out and look awesome against Cyril Gahn, made it look like easy work, but he is, like 2 years off now. He's going up against a much more well-rounded guy in Stipe Miocic, and everybody and their mom thinks that he's going to get the finish here. I am not convinced. I like his decision prop at plus 430. Both these guys have high-level 5-round experience, and I think that it'll start a little bit slower than we expected, and the 42 years of age from Stipe will start to show in those later rounds. So I do think it'll be a little bit of a nail biter in the fourth, fifth round to get to the judges' scorecards. But I really do think plus 430 is a little outrageous. We also talked about the over 2.5. I think that's still sitting at plus money. I love that spot. I'll probably be hitting both for a little bit, but I do expect this fight to go over the whatever line that they've set, and I do expect John Jones to get his hand raised. I'm not really sure where Stipe holds an advantage anywhere. Like I really can't even.
Maybe.
Maybe like I even then I'm really not sure. Like I can't make a case for him, but he is a high level athlete. He is one of the best to ever do it, and I do think that he's going to be able to stay safe enough to not get finished here. So give me John Jones. Give me the over 2.5. Give me Jones by decision. That's where I'm looking for this one.
Yeah, man. I tend to kind of believe you. And lean your way. I think John Jones wins this fight 90% of the time, man, especially at this age of Stipe and things. I just feel like John's always been the better fighter, and he has many paths to victory here. And there's questions on how he's going to perform at heavyweight if the fight gets extended, if he's forced to grapple here. Does he have the cardio at this size? But, equally number of red flags on Stipe, who's been off for 3 or 4 years after one of the worst, nastiest knockouts he's ever suffered in his career from Francis Ngannou. And so, I feel like there's equally, like I said, as many red flags here. I feel like Jones can stick at range with a jab and a front kick. I feel like Jones can take him down and out wrestle him, and just feel like Jones has so many paths to victories that I can't lean a comfortable way. But I do lean more towards you that it's probably a little bit later in this fight. I feel like he'll have to respect MIOCIC's power a little bit, get his feet wet in the octagon. This isn't Cyril Gane, who you can just take down because he's 8 fights into his career, and has no ground game. So, yeah, Stipe presents, I guess, a lot of more problems. Had this fight been a couple years ago, Stipe is a little bit more live. But right now, I don't think so, man. I'm on the John Jones side on Saturday, and could be potentially the last time we ever break down a John Jones fight. So is your favorite fighter ever since we were young kids? We got to see the GOAT fight live one time, so we can always say that as well. So hope it's not the last time. I'd love to see him fight Aspinall, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen.
I want to see him fight Pereira, dude. Just give the people what they want. Nobody wants to see that Aspinall fight.
I think everybody wants to see that Aspinall fight. No, he has every right to be able to pick and choose his fights right now, man. Legacy's the greatest ever, man. So, John Jones, hope he wins on Saturday. Just not comfortable in the way picking because I feel like he has so many ways he could get it done. Any last thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, you kind of touched on it. If there was a clear path to victory for Jones, I would be much more inclined to bet him by finish, like he had against Cyril Gane, like we figure he'll have against Alex Pereira. But the margin that he is better than Stipe in every aspect, which we just touched on, is just slight. Like Stipe is right behind him in every aspect: the wrestling, the striking, the fight IQ. We've seen Stipe make adjustments mid-fight, and I do feel like he's going to test John Jones way more than Cyril Gane. We've got some recency bias about that finish. Jones has only had 2 of them in the last decade, like 10 fights or so. So, yeah, give me that over. Give me that Jones decision. And still.
13 fights going down to MSG this Saturday, UFC 309. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Make sure to do us a favor. Like, subscribe to the video. We'll be back finishing up the year, hopefully getting out of this rut, right?
Yes, sir.
Y'all take it easy.
Peace.